Hi, my name is Cece Delasso, and my BioBits project is on lobster shell disease. What is lobster shell disease? Says by NOAA, lobster shell disease is an uncontrolled disease affecting the carapace of the American lobster, Hummerus americanus. Lobster shell disease is also known as an episodic shell disease. The Webster Dictionary's definition of episodic means a disease that is temporarily prevalent and widespread in an animal population. The lobster in the picture is a lobster that I caught in a lobster trap off the docks at Mass Maritime. It has shell disease and it was pretty bad. So yeah. A lobster has lobster shell disease. The Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences says lobster shell disease is characterized by deep lesions that can sometimes spread over the entire body of the lobster. You can rate lobster shell disease in three categories. Low, which is less than 10% of the body, is degraded. Moderate is greater than 10% but less than 50%, and severe is greater than 50%. That is said by Kathleen Castro, a writer for the Journal of Crustacean Biology. In the picture, you can tell this lobster has severe lobster shell disease, and if you run your finger over its carapace, which is the top part of the shell, you can feel the lesions of the lobster shell disease. Where can these lobsters be found? These lobsters can be found from Maine to the mid-Atlantic. And in Massachusetts, you can find them in our backyard of Buzzards Bay, Woods Hole, and the Outer Cape. The map of the crustacean biology is showing the prevalence of lobster shell disease in the past few years. It's from 1995 to 2005, so it's a tiny bit outdated, but there is an increase of the shell disease on these lobsters. How can this affect the lobsters? Bacteria can get into the lesions of the shell. NOAA says, once visible, hundreds of organisms such as bacteria, protozoans, and nematodes can be found living in the affected area. It can also affect a lobster's molting. NOAA says for older lobsters, molting is reduced to once a year in the summer. This means if the lobster is vulnerable to shell disease due to a compromised shell, it may develop lesions at some point during the year. Then female lobsters also have an even harder time. NOAA says females have an added hurdle to overcome because they don't molt while carrying eggs. Molting for these females may be delayed up to 6 months. This means any lesions on the shell have 6 more months to reach the bloodstream. Large, healthy, and reproductively successful females are extremely important for sustaining a population, so it's discouraging to see this condition having an exaggerated effect on the females. Lobster shell disease can also compromise the shell integrity. Woods Hole says, holes often penetrate the shell, causing the hard shell to fuse with soft membranes underneath. The disease left the lobster susceptible for bacteria or viruses and interfered with their ability to molt the shells and grow. In extreme cases, the entire shell rotted, killing the lobsters. A lobster shell is very important because it's like the armor and it protects the lobsters. And in the picture, you can see this female lobster has eggs, and we caught this female lobster at the aqua lab on campus, and she had pretty bad shell disease. Causes a lobster shell disease. Scientists and researchers don't really know what causes lobster shell disease, but they have a good idea. It's caused by a bacterium called Aquilina. Aquilina was first in the lobster population in New York, but then because of the warming waters, it was able to travel up to the New England population of lobsters. Then as the water gets warmer, the bacteria can thrive more and jump to other lobster populations in New England. Then the top picture is a picture of the bacterium Aquilina. Then the bottom picture is a closer look of the lesions of the shell disease. What is the history of lobster shell disease? Sarah Pratt, a writer for Woods Hole, says in the late 1930s, lobstermen in Rhode Island noticed a strange black spots on shells of lobsters being held in tanks. Then, in the mid-1900s, a more severe form of this disease emerged in southern New England waters. And in the 1980s, a similar condition started to appear in wild populations. And I might add that a shell disease has been seen on other crustaceans, but not to this extent. What are the effects of lobster shell disease? Lobster shell disease can hurt the economy. So lobster shell disease makes the lobster look undesirable, which is bad for the fishermen and whole food sellers who want to sell lobsters. It is also bad because lobster shell disease you can see a lot of prevalence in the New England area, which New England is known for their seafood, mostly the Maine and New England lobsters, which can really hurt our economy bad. The meat inside the lobster is perfectly fine to eat, but it's because of the shell and how it looks, many people might not want to eat that lobster. It can also hurt the populations of lobsters because lobsters are in the middle of the trophic level, and if lobster populations are dying, then it could mess up the trophic levels. And in the picture, it's a closer look of the lesions of what the lobster shell disease looks like. In conclusion, lobster shell disease is still prevalent today. There's still so much research to be done by scientists and researchers to figure out what causes this disease. And lobster shell disease does affect us in some way. Thank you for listening to my presentation.